Hello guys, in today's video we're going to continue what happened after the nobles realize that they made a huge mistake in attacking the Jura Tempest, so without further ado, let's jump into the video. After recalling the fact that they were the one who initiated the attack on Monster Kingdom and realize how strong their enemies are, they got terrified. One of the ministers mentioned that we're in a bad situation, even if we can negotiate with the evil dragon, we are still enemy with that Rimuru, not okay at all. They aren't considering to ask help from Rimuru to negotiate with the but they are more worried that if they anger Rimuru, it would further initiate Baldora's outhaul. Even when he was completely ignored earlier, he spoke in a calm voice and gathered everyone's attention. Everyone, you need not to worry about that part. When I fought against the Orc Lord, I once worked alongside Rimuru-san, surprisingly good-natured person, and wishes to coexist peacefully with humans. He was interrupted midway through his speech and the noble said, "Oh, if that's the case, we shall have Yuham-sama as our mediator to pass our demands. We shall discuss that matter later. You may await orders in another room." The nobleman gave orders to Yuham arrogantly. Even when Yuham is a warrior and considered hero, the nobles still look down on him because he's still a civilian by blood. Carlos is a highly ranked noble and can be put as the best example of nobles who are too conscious of differences in status, but it's not the right time for him to act this way. The other nobles stare at Carlos with discontent at his lack of self-awareness. Yuham responded, "Don't get ahead of yourself now. Rimuru is normally quite nice, but it's a different thing right now. Surely, you all understand the reason behind it." "What do you mean? Aren't you guys the ones who initiated attack on Rimuru-san's country? Well, that's a bad idea. Some of his companions ended up dead, and he's surely furious right now. Who gave you the permission to meddle with state affairs, and how dare a mere commoner spit out such nonsense? It's convenient that you're on good terms with Rimuru, and as a hero, it is your duty to act as a mediator. So go figure something put already," the arrogant Carlos says without feeling any shame. Yuham hates being talked down to, and it's one of the reasons why he hates nobles, but he remained calm and continues his explanation. "You didn't seem to send any envoy or declaration of war before the invasion. Instead, you sent the Otherworlders and caused a riot there." He also explained that he's shocked when he found out about it, but still Pharma's kingdom is his home, so he didn't intend to see his homeland destroyed either. He managed to calm Rimuru down and begged him to negotiate for peace. Also Raisin is there and ask him the same favor. Yuham thinks to himself that if the arrogant nobles caused a scene during his explanation, the fall of Pharma's kingdom would have been assured. He sensed the aura emitted by Diablo behind his back, and he can sense its anger. Right now, the only thing keeping Diablo from lashing out is his loyalty towards Rimuru's command, but if Diablo loses his temper, then it would be bad for Yuham's coming kingship. If Diablo handles the nobles too kindly, it would lead to future problems, but if he is to kill them off, it will most certainly lead to a bad name among the public. The most ideal situation is to have the opposing nobles start a conflict by themselves. Diablo doesn't care about human lives, may it be nobles or civilians. It's obvious from how he treated King Edmulus, he could do more if someone dares to insult the monster ruler Rimuru. Yuham feels much more nervous compared to the nobles, and Raisin shares the same feeling. So Raisin said, "Carlos-sama, please behave yourself now." "What, Raisin-sama, are you siding with this damn peasant? I told you to shut up. Don't butt in when you aren't aware of the circumstances," Raisin yelled. The nobles were surprised because Raisin lost his composure, so they decided to remain quiet and observe the situation. "Listen everyone. What Yuham-sama said is correct. We were in danger when Shogo and the two Otherworlders were killed by the monster lieutenants, and the storm dragon wiped out our frontal assault. The only survivors left were myself, Raham, and King Edmulus. We were captured and only released with the help of Yuham-sama," Raisin explained, and no one doubted him. So the things move on smoothly. Raisin, Raham and Yuham take turns on speaking while Marquis Muller and another person intervenes to keep the conversation well in hand. Their play cover each other up and was able to convince the ministers. The ministers confirmed if the king was cursed on the battlefield and ended up in his current state, and Raisin responded, "The monster king only agreed to assist us after the king's promise of peaceful coexistence. How could the great kingdom of Pharmas submit to the rules of monsters?" Raham explained that this can't be helped, or else they wish to fight against the monster nation, and the storm dragon would also become their enemy. Even their trump cards, the Otherworlders, couldn't win against a monster's generals. The ministers looked down on the monster kingdom But now they've realized that the military alone of Jura Tempest Federation can outmatch the whole Pharma's kingdom. And now, a conclusion is reached, let's accept this proposal for now. Does anyone object? Mark Muller asked everyone and most people begin to nod in agreement. Now, since Pharma's kingdom decided to enter negotiation with Tempest Federation, Diablo decides that it is time for him to take action. He said wise choice. Then I shall release the king as promised, Diablo said as he steps forward towards the throne. One of the ministers got furious and asked who he is, and Diablo announces proudly, my apologies. My name is Diablo, subject to my majestic ruler Rimuru-sama and his loyal butler. The ministers looked confused, but they do not know how to respond. Diablo walks straight towards the king's throne, and the knights move to block him, however doesn't even care, and he continues to approach the box on the throne. Some of the imperial knights were shocked as their bodies turned numb, which makes them unable to move and couldn't even make a sound. The royal guards are considered rank A by the standard of the Freedom Association, and even when there are around 100 knights on the room, yet all unable to move an inch before Diablo. This point Diablo hasn't even do anything yet. The knights freeze because of fear when they realized how dangerous Diablo is. Diablo takes out the full recovery potion from his pocket and pours on the meatloafs of King Edmulus. And without anyone's notice, he removes the spell on the king casted by Xian. Then a dramatic change takes place as the king's body instantly restored to his healthy form. All the doctors and mages are amazed after witnessing the king's transformation, and one of the ministers asked, what is this medicine? This is our nation's special product. Full recovery potion, top-notch healing potion exported only to friendly nations. It is because Diablo's wit that he was able to put on dramatic and effective play, which convinced the crowd that the full recovery potion is effective and the king is saved. Diablo asked, are you alright? And King Edmulus responded in a weak tone, yes, thank you for saving me. Diablo's unique skill temper can achieve complete dominance over whomever pledges loyalty to him. Now that King Edmulus is already affected by Tempter, if he is to have any thought of betrayal, Diablo would immediately be aware of it. The servants quickly fetched the king's clothes, and after taking his clothes, the king nods after Diablo signals him with his eyes. Well then, King of Pharmas. My master Rimuru-sama has a message for you. Diablo introduced and King Edmulus responded, speak then, honorable envoy of Tempest Federation. At this moment King Edmulus has finally acknowledged the Jura Tempest Federation as a nation, and Diablo is the messenger sent by that nation. The King of Pharmas has welcomed Diablo with highest honor because personally, he doesn't intend to continue the conflict anymore. So perhaps the king's announcement was more to protect his own subjects rather than announcing for the sake of Diablo. Diablo then starts to deliver the message. A week from now, His Grace hopes both kingdoms would send out representatives to sign a peace treaty here, but before we reach a peaceful agreement, here are the demands we propose to your nation. He takes out a piece of paper from his pocket which contains the written conditions for an agreement demanded by Rimuru. But in reality the conditions are Diablo's demands. That contains 3 options, which is first, the king is resign and compensate for the war. Option 2, the Pharma's kingdom is to surrender and be controlled by Tempest Federation. Option 3, both 1 and 2 are rejected, and the war shall continue until the Pharma's kingdom is burned to the ground. For them the demands are more like threats, which tells them to either agree or die. Diablo intentionally recites the contents of the paper dramatically, and with a joyful expression, he awaits the nobles' reactions. The nobles thinks that they are being persuaded with threats, but Diablo doesn't care as his attention is focused on King Edmulus. He bowed to King Edmulus and tells him, these are our demands. You have 1 week from today. Do give us your response by that time. The king said the time is not enough and they need at least a month, but Diablo interrupted and said he doesn't have such patience. King Edmulus still insisted that this isn't a small matter, and they will have to gather the nobles from around the region and decided through the National Council of Pharma's kingdom, yet Diablo interrupted him and said, hush, will you? I do not care how difficult it may be in your part, and I will not accept any excuse to delay matter. Also, don't write anything funny. If I don't receive any response in 7 days, then we'll consider that your nation has chosen the third option, which is war. Diablo finishes what he said and leaves King Edmulus and the nobles without even turning his head. How stubborn, someone shouts, but Diablo couldn't care less and leaves as soon as he finishes his business there. And this is where we stop the video. See you on the next part.